Welcome back to the Rebuild the Construction Mindset podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Kelley Huss and have Jenna Hamilton on the other side. First, we just want to say, we said welcome back, but welcome back to us too. We know we've had about a month where we did not post anything. A lot of stuff, vacations, work, real work where we get paid, all coming down and bogging us down, right, Jenna?
Yep. Unfortunately,
but we came back together today. So the goal is still that we're dropping new episodes every other week. Maybe we'll have some gaps here and there, but we hope that the ones that we are dropping are impactful and you guys are finding value out of them. Please let us know if you've got ideas of topics. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow us on our LinkedIn or Instagram at Rebuild the Construction Mindset. Today's topic is a follower sent this one to us, and it was one that Jenna and I have experienced a lot, but it's about culture of respect on the job site, specifically to trades respecting each other's work. You know, when we damage other trades' work and owning up to that damage, even if it's, just an accident. So that's kind of what we're going to hit on today.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thanks, Kelley. So I think we're just going to kind of chat about this because, like Kelley said, we've both had a lot of experiences with this personally, and we could speak to a lot of the personal experiences that we've had and kind of give some ideas on how to create that respect on your job sites, and also how to identify if there's problems with it. I know it's always hard when you get kind of into the heart of the job site, heart into the project, and you're just constantly going and you don't feel like you can really stop and look at how things are on your job site and making sure that everyone is respecting each other. But this is very important because if you can create the respect on the front end, then you're going to have less of a fight on the back end. So that being said, one way that I would say that you create respect on the job site is simply by introducing everyone at the very beginning of the project. And I think that doesn't really happen as often, which I feel like it should, where everyone kind of gets together at the beginning, whether it's a sub meeting or whatever, and you meet the other trades, project managers, you meet the other trades, foremen, superintendents, everyone kind of gets to know each other's names. Because once you know people's names and a little bit about their family life, it's a lot harder to be disrespectful to them, in my opinion. So I feel like that's something that, I've experienced on jobs where the GCs made that a priority, and we've, the entire project after that was a lot smoother than projects where I don't even know who, the drywaller PM even is. I've never even met them or even know their name. So, when I'm sending in trade damage tickets or whatever, I'm not putting that into perspective of who that person is. I don't know, Kelley, if you agree with that.
I think there's an element of knowing who we are as the PMs and the superintendents, but how do you then take that out to the guys actually doing the work? Because we're aware that you're not getting always the same guys out there on your crews. You may be hiring a lot to up your manpower. You don't know some of those guys out in the field as well. And how do we get them to respect the work of not only maybe their same, in the same company, but then within other companies? So I think there's a start that we have to be willing to own up to mistakes and admit to that. But how do we then take that out to those guys in the field that maybe we don't know as well or new to the company. I mean, it mind boggles me that we still can walk around a job site to this day and see things drawn on drywall, in the stairwells that aren't completed, that, things get damaged and the guys, first of all, don't want to admit to it, don't want to say who was near it, where they were working. I know there's fear there. That's an area, but I think there's many aspects of that beyond just us in the office, I'll say, from my PM super standpoint. But how do we do that in the field? Because that's where a lot of that frustration then comes from, right? We get calls that, I think I've had a call in my past of like, one of your guys screwed into a pipe. And it's like, okay, well, I don't want to be like, who did it? Right? Like, we gotta figure it out. We gotta see, is that true? What happened? Why did that happen? What was going on? But it's usually really hard to figure that stuff out if someone's not there to like be like, that guy is the one that did it. Which, same point, if it's the guy that did it, I want to talk to him specifically, not just be like, get the fuck off my job. So I think there's an element that is a little farther down that we got to talk about.
I also think that the trade damage conversation, I mean, most of the time, trade damage is not on purpose. It's a lot of the time,
True.
It could be that, they were pushing a cart and they ran into the wall and they damaged the wall. But the aspect of that makes it difficult is the lack of ownership, right? Like not owning up to the damage, not owning up to the mistake and getting it fixed. And so, and that's a really small, that's a super small like example. I mean, a big example would be if, for example, on one of my jobs, one of our guys was putting in strut for overhead service carriers and they bent the sprinkler and they didn't say anything. And so luckily the general contractor caught it before they turned the system on. But if they would have turned that system on, it would have drenched all of our work, right? And at that point, we would have been ripping out all the stuff. And if they could have proved that it was us, which it was, then we would have been paying for all of that. And, that was something we had to have a conversation with that individual. And it wasn't his, like, he was new and he was scared, I think, to say anything.
Yeah.
And
Fear.
to get in trouble. But that, by not saying something at the beginning, you're going to end up having a way bigger consequence at the very back end if, depending on what the thing is, and just take ownership. Because, and that's the thing, is we shouldn't be creating fear for people on the job site to not own up to mistakes. And that's, I think, a lot of the times what's happening, right? Like big bad superintendent for the trade or whoever is constantly like talking down to some of these workers. And so they're scared to own up to it because they're like, well, Jeff's going to freaking yell at me or he's going to, whatever. So I think just giving that like space where they feel like they can talk, they can say something and they can bring it up, and making it very clear at the very beginning that, hey, if something happens, please tell me. I would rather you tell me now than us find out later.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fear. Actually, earlier this week, was talking a couple times about just the fear of, as a PM and making mistakes. I knew somebody that ordered the wrong material. It's a $30,000 mistake, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna get fired. I'm gonna get fired for that. And what really comes down to it, it's how you deal with the mistake than it is that the mistake happened, right? I think a lot of us have been in situations where we have lost money for companies. We have failed at something. If we all were constantly getting fired, the industry would not be consistently going forward. But I think there's an element that's still out there in the field where, especially if they're younger, I screwed through a pipe. I did something. I don't want to admit that it's wrong. I don't want to say anything because I'm replaceable. I think if we go back to talking with Mario, right? Just even taking a day off can be seen. You're replaceable. You don't want to admit to that because you don't want to get fired, right? You need the money, you need to support your family, whatever it is. So that's something we have to get people to understand, that it's okay to say something, because it's how you come to me and say something, then it is about the mistake. Okay, we made a mistake. Let's understand how we can fix it. Most of the time, everything is fixable. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that in lieu of screaming and yelling and how dare you like fail and whatever it is. What went wrong? Why did that person make that mistake? If it truly was a mistake, right? It wasn't something they did on purpose. Let's fully understand why they did that. Did we not set them up to succeed? Right? Did we not give them the right tools? Did we not give them the right understanding of the project? Are they new? Mm-hmm. And they had no clue what they were doing in regards to, like, they didn't understand, like, why is that pipe so important, or what happens? Like, there's so many things that we could sit down and like analyze. It's what we do when a safety incident comes down. It's like, why did this near miss happen? Let's talk about all the systems in place in lieu of just automatically going, you as a person failed.
Yeah.
But I think that's like, there's an element, and I wouldn't say I feel like there's people that do that out in the field that give that respect to the guys. But then there are some people that still don't, right? We have a mix of it everywhere. I think it's, I don't know.
I mean, it goes back to like elementary school, it's treat people how you want to be treated, and understand that, construction is terrifying if you're new. It is honestly, like, walking on a job site when you've never been on a job site before is one of the most intimidating things. And I think the people that have been in the industry for so long forget that. And they, don't put themselves in their shoes to say, yeah, like, this can be really scary. I could see why, if they made a mistake, they don't want to be looked at as dumb, right? Like, they don't want to be looked at as this, oh, the stupid kid did this thing, right? So it creates this environment where they feel like these new kids, especially again, most of them are men, right? So like, they have this like idea or this thought that I have to, I should have known how to use that tool properly because I'm a man, like that kind of a thought, versus like asking the question like, hey, I'm about to screw into this wall. What should I look for? Kind of a situation.
Yeah, that's the asking of the questions. I mean, I know for me that was I did not like asking questions when I started in the industry, and there was a fear. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to not appear that I was dumb. How many people coming into the industry, from high school, from college, doesn't matter if you have a degree or not, right? There is a fear of, I don't want to be perceived as dumb, and I want to make people trust me and respect that I know what I'm doing. That's where the daily huddles, going back to what you said, getting to know the people. So yeah, getting to know the team that you're working with on the day to day. So if it's for me, my internal team, in regards to my direct people that I'm working with, my super, whoever it is, but then also if it's the other trades, the other GCs, PMs, supers, but then when I'm walking the job site, it's who are my guys and how do I connect with them? How is your day? Like, spending the time to learn more about them. When I see something going wrong, or I see, hey, that doesn't look right. For me, I always be like, hey, what's going on? Why is that like that? Explain it to me. I wouldn't say I pull like a dumb card, but I just don't come off of that's wrong. I ask like, hey, just talk to me. Why did you do it this way? And for me, if you can explain it to me logically, we're done. Like, I'm good. But I want to, if you can't explain it to me well enough, then I'll be like, well, let's stop and let's let's go talk to the foreman or the super. I was always tried to make sure I at least knew the guys that at least on my team out there. I think I heard this from a coworker last week, and it correlates well. None of us want to say we don't like going around and being like, put your safety glasses on, right? Mm-hmm. It's really annoying. Put your gloves on, like to remind them. But respect for people and respect for those guys out there is to be like, hey, don't you like doing, I like riding my motorcycle. So I'm like, don't you like riding your motorcycle? Don't you kind of need your vision to do that? So that's what these safety glasses are here for you to do that for. So making the connection with some type of personal thing that that person is doing, or, you know, you get to learn who they are. So you're making that connection. So then it's easier to be like, wear your safety glasses. I've seen like my guys standing on like the mid rail of the scissor lifts. It's like, what do you, and I didn't do this at the time. And now I'm thinking back like, hey, like if I knew him well enough, could I have been like, you want to go home and dance or whatever it is? I don't know. Thinking legs now. So I'm like, what do you do with your legs? Ride a bike. Like that's, you need those, right? If you fall off those and break something, like you can't do that. So it's beyond connecting beyond the work. It's connecting to them personally. And how many times do our guys even out in the field do that with other trades? I mean, it is very like high school when you think of like lunch breaks, like everybody's with their companies, their little like silo groups. Like how often do you see mechanical guys sitting with the framers and the framers sitting with the caseworkers? It's maybe if they know some, but it's not very often that they intermingle fully, right? So they're not going to walk by and see another guy potentially doing something unsafe or dangerous and maybe say something because I don't know who that person is. It's not my job to do that, but it is our jobs. It is all of our jobs to make sure all of us come home from the top of a company down to the one day brand new person, apprentice on a job site.
Agreed. Well, and I think the respect, like in terms of the field personnel, the respect is built over the course of like years because they work with the same people over and over and over again. And then like by like the fifth project that they're on with this, you know, with another trade partner that they know, that's when they start to like have quote unquote respect for each other. And they're like, oh, we go way back, you know, we've been working together or we've been on the same job sites for however many years. But it's like, why does it take that long to build that respect? Like it should be easy and it should be fast because at the end of the day, our goal is to do the same thing, right? To build a building. Like, I don't know why we still have such silos and why, I mean, I do know why. It's because of our contracts and it's because of the way that our contracts, like the low bid mentality, you know, like everyone's out for themselves and everyone's trying to protect themselves. And that's where you get a lot of this quote unquote, like disrespect that happens because, well, if I own up to it, then my company has to pay for it. You know, so it's like that mentality where you're trying to quote unquote protect your company. And if we didn't have those low bid mentality projects, then that wouldn't happen. And you can kind of see the difference. Like if you have a different type of like the IPD project, for example, right? Like I know we keep bringing that up, but my field guys said that was the absolute best project that they've ever worked on in the field. They said that like the amount of respect that everyone had for each other on that job site, because no matter what happened, it wasn't anyone's individual fault. They just, what was the best solution to figure it out and how to get it, you know, resolved? Because it wasn't coming out of one individual company's pocket. It was coming out of the project's pocket, right? So I don't know. I think that's kind of where a lot of this comes down to is everyone's out, you know, everyone has these like walls up.
I mean, I agree the contracts put that boundary there, but you don't, if that contract is in most places, the contract is still that way, you can still act that way on a job. By not saying anything because you're afraid, yes, it's going to cost the company more money. you're actually then costing the company probably 10 times more money. So think of your example from earlier. If the GC hadn't caught that, it would have like flooded the whole floor.
Yeah.
That would have cost not only you, but multiple other trades a lot of money.
Right.
So by not saying anything, you are potentially making it worse. Right?
Agreed. Yeah, I agree.
So I think there's an element, it's like, yes, you can make contract changes and potentially, like you said, have a great job. But why can't we do that on normal contract stuff, in regular lump sum? Why can't we just treat our people that way every day? Why can't, I know money comes into play, but why can't we look at it going, we are trying to do what's best for the project as a whole, instead of, well, I have a contract, so I'm not going to help you this way. Why do we do that? Is it because of fear of?
I can tell you right now exactly what it is.
What?
It's ego. It's because everyone has such a big ego for whatever reason. And so if you know, if you're gonna like quote unquote blame someone, or not blame someone, but you know, bring up the fact like, hey, like all of our countertops are damaged because the electricians were standing on our countertops to get to the ceiling, whatever, like, right? And at that point, because it is, and kind of going back to the contract thing, because it is a low bid or whatever, like we're not going to pay for that. We're not, so of course we're going to send in a trade damage ticket, because now we got to replace all these countertops, we're going to fix all these countertops or whatever, right? And now we just like, that's kind of like an attack in a sense, right? So like, yeah, I guess we can, like, you know, you can approach it differently, which I approach things very differently when it comes to trade damage. Like I don't like to just like send in a ticket and just tell the GC, hey, FYI, like this is trade damage, we think it was electrician, whatever. Like I like to like have the conversation and try to see if we can talk to the PM for the electrician to come up with a solution, right? Like rather than just attack them in that way. But it's egos. It's because everyone has an ego and they're like, well, how do you know that was our guys? Well, because we literally have to.
Yeah, right? If you don't have a photo, you're screwed on that. And then was it a one case scenario? Was it, you know, and then the guy could be like, I was just doing it really quickly. You know, there's so many, like, you go down that path and you can hear all the different stories, variances of like the why did they do that? And so, but when a job's coming towards the end, and it ties into, you know, getting squished at the end, like our conversation with Jack, like you're in a rush. You've got a lot of other things going on. I mean, we are coming back from a month of not doing any of these episodes because we had other things going on, work and personal, that, you know, this got pushed to the side. So how many times are you actually at that point going, oh, let me go get with the electrician's PM and be like, hey, right. Or is it just easier to send the paperwork in because that's where you're at in the job? So sometimes I mean, I agree with like how you're going about it, but that always, I feel like sometimes that just doesn't happen. And then it's fighting for money at the end, which creates a whole other element of issues. But it's, I mean, it's just like, I feel like it's inherent that we have trade damage. If it's minor, okay, we deal with it. But if it's like some big things that are massive issues, that's, I don't know. I feel like those for sure need a phone call, but I don't know if we'll ever get away from just like having damage on jobs in general. I mean, I don't think that's a thing. I think it's more or less just owning up to, if you did it, just saying it. Also an element of, we don't want to admit that we may have, even if, okay, let's say like we fucked something up, but we don't really know if we like, we don't know if we actually messed it up. You know how those things come. It's like, this doesn't look right. Like this doesn't, something's wrong here, or it doesn't match the detail. And you're like, no, that's right. Like, I think there's also an element of respecting each other enough to take the time to be like, let's really analyze, is this done right? Because I think there's, going back to egos, I think even me, like you just admitted or you just told me I did something wrong. I'm like, I don't want to admit to that right away, especially if I don't even know if I did it wrong. I'm like, I swear to God, I did it right. Like, no, I didn't do that wrong. And then you have to go through all the details and you have to go through there's a lot of effort that can take place to prove you did or didn't do something wrong. So even if you don't even know if you damaged the work, like if you have no clue, let's say that guy that you're talking about that, did the pipe, maybe he was 8 hours just doing work all day long and he has no clue. And you just came out to him and like, you did this. And you're like, no, I didn't. The amount of effort it takes to go and figure that out is a lot. And do we always want to do that? Or is it easy to just like, just move on, just get rid of it? Like put tape over the hole. Like sometimes I think there's an element, I wouldn't say always ego. I think it's that. It's a lot of work to prove you did or didn't do anything wrong. And then it's your reputation that goes along with that. Right. So I don't know if like it fully ego in some cases. I can agree with you on ego. I also agree with it's like, I don't want my reputation to be ruined because of this. And so it's like you're fighting so hard to prove that you're right that you may miss that you were wrong, or you find out. I mean, I feel like I've had those cases where I'm like, no, I'm right. 100% I am right. And so how many times does that happen out on job where it's easier just to be like, no. And then like, I'm not going to worry about it because I got 20 other things to do. So I don't want to deal with this. Like, I think there's multiple reasons we do it. And I think it's individual. Each person's reason is completely different. So how do we counteract that?
I mean, I think it's a lot of it too is not necessarily like blaming someone. A lot of it is, hey, like letting someone know what happened and how to avoid it next time for more of a lessons learned, like if they're going too fast and doing the thing and they make a mistake and it's catastrophic, that is something that needs to be brought to their attention because they need to learn that to not do it next time. And I think that's something that, going back to the ego thing, people don't like to be told that they're wrong or that they did something incorrectly or that they made a mistake. But people make mistakes. It happens, especially in construction. I mean, how many projects have we, I would be so curious, like how many projects we've completed like over the course of 10 years just in Colorado. Like how many projects have been like built just in Colorado over the course of 10 years? And how many of the same mistakes have happened on every single one of those projects? Right? Like we don't learn.
No, we're not. I mean, we're a firefighting industry in regards to what's this problem? Let's fix it and move on. And you forget about it until the next job. And then I feel like there's an element, if it really affected you to a point where it was like a massive mistake, you are fully remembering. It was a big impact, like that $30,000 thing I was saying. It actually wasn't my mistake, but I remember it because it's still a lot of money, but it was someone coming to me and talking to me about it. So that's why I remember it. So you like remember that. You may remember big things, but little things that were just a quick fix that you had to fix, in the moment on one day, 5 years ago. Like you're not going to remember. You may go, man, I feel like I've done this before. I feel like I've had this issue before, and it may bring it up again, but I feel like we don't take the time to really analyze the why behind it and go, why is this constantly having to be corrected? Why do we keep having this failure? I mean, it's like walking a job. And I say it to myself, why do we still have people on job sites that love to draw on drywall inappropriately? Why? Why do we feel like that is the appropriate thing to be doing? Why do we have like a poll of like which trade partner we hate as a job site? I've seen that. And it's like, why do we do this? And then you get the GC going, hey, I need you to go through, and I've had this asked to me, I need you to help and go through and like clean up all the inappropriate like drawings on the drywall, and like because the owner's walking. Great. So we're fixing it really quickly. We're fixing the problem when it was needed to be fixed for the owner, but we're not fixing it for the day-to-day people that
you're not fixing it though. You're just covering it, right?
You're fixing it for that exact moment.
Yeah.
You are not then going, this is inappropriate. And again, how often do we find the person that's doing that? That's the whole other thing. It's always in like a stairwell, in a porta-john, in a corner of a building that like most people aren't just going through. So
in my mind, yeah, in my mind, it's like, it kind of blows me away sometimes too, though. Cause I'm like, we really have that immature of people working on our job sites sometimes. Like it kind of scares me that they're putting in work and they also like are drawing. I have a friend, she's a female in the industry and I love, like, she's so great. And she works for a GC, and there was a very inappropriate picture of her drawn in a porta potty. Very inappropriate. And they didn't really do anything about it. And I was like, in my mind, that is a stand down situation. This is not okay. Like, we need to have a complete stand down and make it very clear that that's very inappropriate. That is not okay. Whoever did it, if we find out who you are, you were off the job site. Hopefully your company, does an actionable item like firing you, hopefully, like in my opinion, because that is not okay. You are purposely disrespecting that human for no reason. And it's just, I think it blows my mind that there are those people, but there's going to be those people even in the freaking executive levels, right? Like, you've got people that are inappropriate, that are immature, that gossip, that have all these other.
High school never ends. You get that told that like, oh, the world isn't like high school.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. I would say at this point it is. Like, you just learn how to deal with it differently and how to move between the like circles. You learn how to jump in between. You learn how to communicate better. Like, I think that's an element where you learn how to move between them. Or you don't, and you live in that one little circle, and you're still who you were when you were 16 years old,
right?
For some reason we do have those immature people, and you're right, that's everywhere. And we're going to have the people that decide to, I'm going to screw this guy over today because he pissed me off. That's not everybody, right? So how do we counteract those people? How do we get those people to stop, right? Because it's not everybody.
No.
And I think that's an element of kind of that mindset that construction is like a horrible industry to work in, because that's the stuff you see about. That's the stuff you're going to complain about, right? That's the stuff that you're like, oh my gosh, this happened to me at work, right? Oh, I got to babysit a bunch of people. This guy did this. There was a fist fight on the job, right? That's what you're talking about more often than the good stuff that you're talking about. And I think that's an element that we have to switch. Not only daily huddles where we're like, this is inappropriate, do not do it. If I get caught you doing it, like, you will be removed. If you make a mistake, own up for it. And I think a great idea is like, here's a mistake I've done. Like, as a leader, the superintendents, the foremen, I've made mistakes. Here's a couple that I've made. I think showing that they've made those mistakes just makes that person like personal. And realize that, look, I'm still here and I made this mistake. It could be a big one. It could be a little one. I don't care. I think showing that you've made mistakes, being vulnerable about it in daily huddles, with one-on-ones with the guys, any of that, I think that is more empowering than just saying, don't do it. If you make a mistake, you better come and tell me. Because I think there's an element like, oh, the way you just said that, I don't want to come and tell you.
Yeah.
I think opening up, I mean, like, I've made mistakes too. Here's some examples of those mistakes. Because then now you're an actual person that makes mistakes instead of my boss.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it, honestly, a lot of it does come unfortunately, even though I feel like it shouldn't, but it does come all the way down to like the GC, like how they set expectations on their job site from the very beginning. And if respect for people is, you know, included in one of their like requirements on this to be on this job site, then you're more likely gonna have that versus like not ever even talking about it at all. You know, and now you've got silos versus like, hey guys, we're on this job site together. We're gonna work together. If you set that expectation, because at the end of the day, that is our customer, right? Like as trade partners, our customer is the general contractor. And if the general contractor is telling us that this is a requirement to be on their job site, do you really think that people are gonna like do all the things they would normally do on a job site where the GC doesn't care and they don't even like they're just like, I don't care, just get the job done? Like you're gonna have a higher level of respect. Not only that,
Well, if there's more people bought into it from all levels, yes, I agree. But I don't think it's needed to do. I think you, as a PM, Jenna, I'm saying you, can take care of your team and have respect on your team, even if the GC is not pushing it. And I think that shows maturity and confidence in what you do and what your team and your company does. And I think that is just as important.
No, and I definitely agree with that. But I think what I'm saying is like there's a lot of that's saying that the company has that. Like my company has it built into our culture that you respect people, right? Like, and I know that our field guys are very respectful, and I know because that is drilled into our company culture and our company values. But not every company is like that.
No,
especially on like a low bid project where you've got these like companies that are kind of new that don't really have like a culture really set in place yet, or that have a really bad culture set in place where it's the toxic work environment is in the soul of a company and it's brought into the job site, right? Like that also happens a lot. So I think that's kind of what I mean by like, if the GC is going to set the expectation at the very beginning, then the individuals for that company are going to see that and see that everyone else is following those rules. So they're not going to be the ones, you know, acting out kind of a situation.
But I don't think just because the GC says it, that some trade partners will change their culture because it's written into their contract though. If that's how they act every single day, they're not just going to change because a piece of paper says that they have to.
No, but the GC,
and that's unfortunate because the GC should have been like reviewing that before they ever. It's not just about money, but when it is just about money, those are the situations you get. And so you may be working with people who are that way and people that aren't, and then it's dealing with that situation. I think that's unfortunately part of the industry right now, that we need people to start. No, we're going to hire not only the best price, but also the best fit for the team. And I think some very low bid, quick jobs, and some GCs don't focus that way. And so it comes back down to, do I want to work with a GC that doesn't focus that way? Or who else is bidding this job? I don't want to work with those people from a trade partner side, right? I think there's more picking and choosing to it, but that's hard as we have our ups and downs with the industry, right? Yeah. We need to make a decision that that's how the industry is going to change. That's leaders making that change from all companies. That's how we're going to keep good people. That's how you're going to make more money. In the long run, you would hope. Some people may have that short burst of, I got all these jobs, I don't care if I treat everybody great, but they're making me money.
But that's why the low bid, like, that's why I think, like, the low bid mentality with the low bid contract, like, I'm not saying it's the sole reason, right? But it definitely doesn't help. It doesn't help the situation because in reality, like, you're not going to look at the culture really of the people that you're hiring. You're going to look at the dollar, right? And you're going to stick it to them when they miss something in their scope that's supposed to be in their scope, and you're going to make them pay for it because it's a little bit, and that was not in your contract and that was not in your budget. Like that is the reality of our industry. especially with low bid. And so that's kind of what creates that like disrespect, quote unquote, even though people shouldn't be taking it personally because it is just really just business, but people do take it personally because majority of the people in our industry do really care about what they do. And so
and that's how I get paid, right?
right.
I get paid because I'm supposedly being helping the company make money. So every time you are pushing me and I'm losing money, I'm losing company money. And then if it's like an ESOP company, well, now I'm actually losing myself money too, right? And if you look at it that way, that's the goal behind an ESOP. So I mean, yes, so just that mentality is, I think I've been in interviews that are in a way negotiated contracts, right? That it's like, yeah, we care about the price, but who's your team? We care about who also your team is. How do you do things? Maybe that's just been I've been in more of those scenarios than I've been just in the low bid lump sum, like fight for every dollar situation. I've not been in that other situation that often. So that may be where some of my, like, I don't have as much experience with it. And maybe that's my really, bias there.
Yeah. And we don't either really, but like, yeah, I don't know. I think if we started to change our mindsets around that, and I think when we start to change the way that we do contracts, I feel like it'll start to kind of like create a different culture in our industry. I really do. And I think on top of that though, I would say even for a low bid situation or whatever, job site, I think that like, this is something that was in the lean builder that I totally agree with is, you can tell how much respect is on a job site by how clean the job site is. You know what I mean? Like you can you can walk into a job site, right off the bat that people don't respect each other because of how dirty and how everything's in everyone's way. And you're constantly tripping over stuff versus like a job site where it's like super, super clean. Everything's organized, everything's on wheels, everything's, the lean, you could tell like lean is kind of a part of that job site. I feel like you just automatically feel like people are probably more respectful. No, it was good. Yeah, I think we covered a lot of the stuff we wanted to kind of touch on today. And again, today we were just kind of wanting just to chat and kind of get the hang of this thing again. So
if you're somebody that wants to talk specifically about this and you've got some really great examples or anything, please let us know, because I really think we could get getting more of that field experience about this would be awesome, and how you help minimize that out in the field.